I think it started faster than I thought. Okay, let me go back here. I lost it. Back here. Pause. Okay, I wanted to get, turn this volume. I wanted to get the hands down setup before I started to log in. Okay. Okay, tomorrow. Got reminders popping up. Hi, Jace. This chat. Oh, it's early. I thought it was late. My clock is wrong. Well, hello, Jace. It's just going to be you and me for a little bit. I told everybody 7 p.m. And I looked at my clock, which is actually showing 7:15. So clearly my clock is not working. I'm going to close some of these things. And turn this to live chat mode. And I will wait a little bit. Actually, I need to plug this in. I'm hearing myself in echo like the last time we did this, because there are going to be sexy men here. Hi, Corvus Magus. Hi, Caroline. I really need to hook in a wired headphones so that I can just drop them and not hear myself, but I can't find my set of wired headphones. So that means I have to have my wireless one, and if I take them out, the sound goes on and you guys get terribly loud feedback. So that's okay. I am just going to make do with hearing myself in echo, and maybe I'll get used to it. It was weird the last time, but that's okay. So we were doing live, just a little bit of an introduction while we wait, because I told people 7 o'clock. I had done the comparison of goddess decks, and one of the decks in there was the Goddesses and Sirens by Stacey DeMarco. Now, I've had this for a long time, but I've never really used it much. It has a very graphic novel, very kick butt kind of vibe to it, and I hadn't really used it at all. But I have to say, when I was doing the comparison of all of the goddess decks, which were mostly softer, lighter colors, and all this other kind of very feminine energy, I enjoyed when I came to this one, where I was like, okay, here, this one, you know, yes, there's the soft version over here, but this version of Athena is going to shoot you with an arrow, right? And so I ended up really enjoying this compared to the other goddess decks. Not because I think it's better than the other goddess decks, but because it did offer a more aggressive, a little bit more powerful kick butt version of the goddesses. And when you compared it to all of the softness, it was nice. I enjoyed it. So a couple people who had this or were interested in getting them after that were asking about the Gods and Titans, because there are, let me move my mouse, there, and the Coke. I'm not being sponsored by Coke Zero, but it seems like it sometimes. And I'll put, here, actually I can do that right now. Let me put this forward. And there's a lot of people who are asleep that are in the UK. That's just the way it is. But I'm just trying to wait till 7 because I had told people I would be back till 7. Whoops. Let's see how I do this. Present to everyone. Okay. Yes, definitely more intense. So one of the things that we talked about is how there are actually very few decks that are just feature gods, or that even have a mix of the two. And so this can lead to some frustration. Obviously, I don't necessarily think you need all just goddess energy or all just god energy, but being able to mix these two decks, then you end up getting actually both. But there is somebody to talk about. Zach had talked about, I thought it was Prometheus Oracle, but it was like Promethean Oracle, that has all like gods, heroes, male mythological people. But there are very few. And so, anyways, Molly wanted to see this, as I think did Nikki. Nikki loves this one, and she wanted to see the men one. So we were talking about it in live chat, and I said, well, look, I'll just do a live walk, or they suggested. I thought Molly was going to do a live walkthrough of it, and she's like, no, you're going to do it, and I'm going to watch you. So I got wrangled into doing a live walkthrough of Gods and Titans. I did actually put it in order. And so while I'm trying to give it till a good 7 o'clock, because I thought I was late and I was early. I've been through, obviously, this guidebook completely. These are the US versions. There are the original Australian version, and then there is a US version. The backs are different. The other backs had the names on them where it looked kind of like 300 movie poster kind of feel to it. So it had goddess and sirens on it. And then there were extra cards that were added. So let's see if I can find. I know Bridget, I think, was added. I know Pele was added. I'm trying to see if I can find. Pele, I know, was added. And I believe maybe Rhiannon was added. Yeah, I believe that one was added. So I don't know exactly which ones were added in the gods, other than I think Odin is one that was added for sure. So there are differences to the original versions and the US printings. One of the things I liked about the guidebooks, both of them, is that I think it does a good job of giving you the symbols that are often associated with the god or goddess. The symbols don't always show up in the cards themselves, but they do show up in the guidebooks, which is nice to at least have it. And you do get some of the mythologies behind them. Obviously not a ton, but it's enough to orient yourself. And there is a glossary of names so that you can see how to pronounce them exactly, what god or goddess they are. So I think that's very helpful, although preference would be that would be right here. How do you pronounce it, where we don't have to go back and find it, would have been my preference. But I actually think the guidebooks on these are good. Where these, in my opinion, sometimes fail, or not fail, but aren't as good as some others, is simply, I'm not sure if I can get this to be less tilted. Don't look away if you get nauseous by movement. So that's more above it. There we go. I think that's better. Is that it does have a graphic novel, sometimes to the degree of like a romance novel, look to some of the cards. These are very buff, very six-packed, very, epitome of a particular version of beauty for all of them. And so that can be a good thing, because I do think, I don't have a problem with God and Goddess decks being beautiful, because I do think that we tend to see our gods and goddesses in cross mythology as sort of being the epitome of that culture's, or the person who's doing the arts, idea of what is beautiful. Now, obviously, that is going to change across culture, across time. These things are going to shift and change what is idealized beauty. But I don't think it's entirely weird to have gods and goddesses being portrayed in that idealized beauty, because I do think we think of them as sort of this perfect version of what it would mean to be like a perfect human specimen. Now, that's not always the case, but I think that that is understandable, that when somebody was painting a divinity or a god or a hero, that they would default to beautiful physical idea, again, whatever that ideal of a physical beauty is at the time. So, you know, that to me isn't surprising, but I do think these push the line of being close to sort of romance novel level. But as I said, hello, Miss Nikki. As I said, I ended up finding it refreshing to have sort of these kick butt warrior woman versions of the goddesses in a sea of softness. It was actually, I enjoyed it. So I have a newfound love for this that I didn't have before, is my point. And back when I first got these, which has probably been about 2 years now, I actually liked the Gods and Titans deck better than I liked the Goddesses and Sirens. So we'll see when we go through them. I miss Nikki. I came on early. I thought I was late, so I came on early. So I've been kind of trying to drag it out a little bit for you and Miss Molly to have a chance to get back. I'm gonna make a loud noise and open this can of orange vanilla Coke. And Coke is not sponsoring this review of the Gods and Titans. Okay, so we'll come back to the cards. Book-wise, it's set up the same. You have a small image of the cards. You have a the name, obviously. You have a keyword that's on the card. You have sort of like a statement about them, information about their mythology, a shadow side, and then I really like the symbols there, and then an invocation if you want to use that. And then in the back, you do again have the glossary of names, like with the goddesses, to help you with how to pronounce them. I should stick a sticky note back there, because I am surely, what is Miss Nikki saying? We can adore the masculine gods and titans, but please keep it fun. And, well, just fun. If your breath is taken away and you can't take it privately, Nikki. That's pretty funny. So, oh, I did this sticky part, I guess, in the wrong place. Let's do it this way so I'm not sticking every time. I do appreciate that the pronunciation guides are here. As I said, with the Goddesses deck, I would have preferred it to be within the deck, or the book itself. In terms of spreads, it does have one card, the twins, full sun, 3 card, a mountain spread, a masculine spread, like the sign there of Aries, and an Odin spread with 9 card. I can't imagine using an Oracle deck and a 9 card. I just don't normally do that. Now, there are exceptions, but they're usually decks that have a system inherently in them versus these types of Oracle decks. So I have never done something like that. I'm more inclined in this case to pull 1 from the goddesses and 1 from the gods to have that masculine and feminine, or blend the 2 and pull a card or 2. So that's more how I would probably use those. In terms of the cards, they are not the same back as the Goddesses ones, but it does have a much, in my opinion, better backing than the original version, which again had the words Gods and Titans on it, and it just kind of looked like a movie poster. Not my favorite. I don't know why people didn't get notifications on this one. I mean, I set it up the exact same way I do a live chat, so that's really strange, but Nikki's didn't either. Well, I don't know. I guess, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'll have to look into it afterwards, but there's not much I can do now to fix it. Same size, obviously. I'll just pull them out just for thoroughness. So here are the backings, and they are the exact same size. They both have thin borders, although the Gods and Titans has sort of a scrolly work around it that you don't have. And it also has like a box around the title, which you don't have on the Goddess and Sirens ones. So they're not exactly the same, but they are the same size, same card stock. And I have definitely mixed these, and they mix perfectly fine. Yeah, I do too, Wiley Kylie, because then you can, I should probably try to move. Watch, if you get nauseous, look away. I'm going to try to get this down a little bit closer. And then stop touching it so it will stop bouncing around. Hopefully that will come into focus. I'm actually going to move this out of the way. Oh, good. Some people's bell worked. Yeah, it's YouTube is very strange in how things work. So let's see. Let's get to the, I'm going to open my book up. Are you guys able to see that? I don't know if this is, my screen looks strange. So I'm going to wait a second until somebody says whether they can see the card fine. We pause for a moment. Moon Priestess says, I think this could be it. I did put out 2 yesterday, then the live chat. So this would be my 4th. It's blurry. Yeah, why is it being blurry? Maybe I shouldn't have it that close. Okay, let me pull it back up. I don't know why it's doing that. It wasn't, I feel like it wasn't doing that before. Okay. I'm gonna do a whoops. Now I really confused it. Okay, just a minute. All right, now I've really messed it up. This is why these live things have the potential to go wrong. But for Miss Nikki and Miss Molly, I am happy to do this for them. I'm gonna give it a second now that I've changed it all. I know, I did warn you. I did warn you. It's like there's a sweet spot where it does focus. I gotta find that. We should be doing this on Zoom, and then I don't have this problem. Oh well. It's not gonna do us any good if it's not. There we go. That seems pretty good. I feel like that's good. I'm guessing it's gonna get blurred when I switch to the next card, and we'll just have to let it refocus. Again, this is not, you know, your ultimate version of doing a walkthrough. This is more for fun. So the first one that we have here is a cot, is how I see this as being pronounced. And we have this as dedication. So what I really like about this is I do think he looks awesome. Like, I don't know, this is not a god that I've ever worked with or like read their mythologies on. This is a Mayan. And it says the ancient Mayans were a tattooed people, but not just as a decorative art to them, but displayed clan identity and were seen as rites of passage and a direct injection of divine powers. So this holds power to it. It's not something that was just decorative. And so I think this looks really powerful, and it really works for me. Symbols for this god are tattoos, personal symbols of pathway or project, and the ink itself seem to be ones that go with this god. Again, I don't have any knowledge of this god outside of it, but I think he looks really awesome. Next, we have Achilles, which will come in hopefully to focus. I probably should just pull this one totally out of view. We'll get the hang of this. I really like this vision of Achilles. I do feel like he is in the middle of battle. These are warriors, right? This is not somebody who is sitting around a boardroom table. This is a warrior, and it has a confidence there. He only has that one little spot where he is obviously weak, which ends up being his Achilles heel, as we know. But he was a warrior, and I feel like he looks very lithe. He's like jumping over the top of people. I just like this version of Achilles. I think it really works fantastic. So I think he's awesome. Miss Nikki's gonna have to say her disclaimer a bunch. This one reminds me of the Baba Yaga of the goddesses. Let me see if I can pull that while this comes into. Yeah, it's right here at the top. So this is the Baba Yaga. And this has that same sort of feel of that. Like, this is not a god that you want creeping up around on your rooftop when you wake up in the middle of the night. So this is a Mayan god of the dead. Let's see how to pronounce his name. It looks like, oh, nothing like it looks. Apwash is how they're showing. He is a Mayan god of the dead. And I think his keyword is fear. And it definitely, to me, has that connotation of fear. Those long, almost four fingers. Let's see what the symbols. Bells, the color black, skeletons, and bones. So you definitely see skeletons and bones. Not so much the color black. He almost has like a frog look with his feet and the way that his fingers are. But it definitely has a very powerful fear. Oh, maybe I need to hold it up. Okay, we'll try that on the next one. So, oops, I'm going to start mixing these with the one-in-one. Just a second. Yeah, mixing cards. Here we have with Anubis. Again, I feel like he looks really powerful. I like this deck. Grief and suffering are a natural part of life. Know that you are loved and protected this time at all times. So it's kind of like a little statement that you could get out of it if you just want to pull it and look at something. Obviously, this is an Egyptian god, and it says, to our eyes, Anubis might look fearsome, but this is not the truth. Yes, jackals do move among graveyards in real life, but this jackal god takes great care of the tender new souls who have passed into the next world, the afterlife. So I like that. Jackal head, flail, and ankh. So we definitely see an ankh in his hand. I don't see a flail. in the image, but I think this does look like Anubis. It's certainly what I would think of, not to Moon Priestess. See, I guess we're all different. I feel like his face looks like a real jackal face, which I like. And you certainly know by looking at this that it's an Egyptian god. It's pretty easy to be able to zoom in on that. Next, we have Apollo. This is the son of Zeus, of course. And it says that Greeks, the Romans, and even the Celts honored this glowing bringer of light. So he is a healer and the god of music. Now, I don't see anything in this picture that has to do with music or healing. He's definitely in warrior mode. The color gold is associated with Apollo, which we can certainly see that the image is predominantly gold tones. But this is pretty much what we saw in the Goddesses and Sirens deck, that you have some really handsome warrior-esque kick-butt figures that, you know, could be that or could be not. But it's associated with the sun, the color gold, arrows, dolphins, three-legged stools, a laurel tree, and the lyre. This is warrior Apollo. He is definitely going, he's just going out there to fight the battles at the moment. Moon Priestess, death is not positive. I don't think that Anubis is coming across as death being negative. He is bringing in the new souls it was talking about. Now, this one, which is associated with death as well, was definitely the more fearsome aspect of death. Okay, so here we have Apollo. Next, we have Ares. Now, obviously, Ares is the god of war, so he fits in really well with the overall theme. Caroline says, when he's done fighting, he will go play some music. Battle helmet and shield are often associated. He does not have a battle helmet on. He does have a shield, but I mean, you have the red tones that you think of with Ares, or I think of with Ares. This is definitely the more aggression and fighting energy that Ares is known for, and I think it works fine. The cards are glossy. These are definitely glossy card stock. It's typical Blue Angel cardstock. So I think this works. Again, very similar to the Goddess and Cyrus. I don't know that you would necessarily go here for accurate portrayals of things, but if you want some kick butt gods and goddesses, these are the decks for you. Let's see. I'm going to see how to pronounce this correctly because I don't know. It says Bayame. Bayame is how it says. Not always accurate, we have found in the other deck. But it says Bayame for beauty. This, in the rural area of Singleton, Australia, lived the first people of the region, the Aborigines of the Wanarua tribal area. The great spirit of these parts is known as Bayame. So let's go here to beauty. We have the little chick coming out. Symbols are a man with huge eyes and no mouth. He definitely does not have anything more than normal eyes, and he just has a mask over his face. And he definitely, to me, does not look aboriginally. So, again, similar things we saw with the Goddesses and Sirens. But I do like the idea of beauty and nature and connecting to nature and having, at least in this deck more, I think, in Goddesses and Sirens, at least some connection to what the gods tend to be connected to. So there's an attempt there, even if it's not super strong. So next up, we have Cernunnos, of course, which I'm always happy to see in a deck. He is a Celtic. Well, it says here that while most people think of Cernunnos as a god of the Celts, the truth is this energy is far, far older. So this is kind of stepping back into prehistoric man covering himself with skins and hair and feathers and bones of the animals he hunted, dancing around his fire, seeing the shadows play against the cave walls. So it's definitely have that shape-shifting energy going on here. And you can see that with the snake that's involved. The staff is very primal feeling. So you definitely get a primal, even his leg looks like it's kind of shape shifting already. So I think, yes, definitely Terror Banger. Very Mortal Kombat 90s. That's definitely good. Symbols, antler, stag, snake, and trees. This one I think you actually get. You know, you've got antlers. This looks like a tree. You have the snake there. And I like the blue paint because that's, you know, often associated more with Picts, obviously, than Celts. Right now, yeah, I'm giving you an idea of what they're showing here in the guidebook. So the symbols that they're saying are antler, stag, snake, and trees. And I think this actually depicts it. Because one of the issues that we had in the Goddess and Sirens is that in the book, it would show symbols, but in the actual images, you didn't see any of those symbols. Where I actually feel like we're seeing more of the symbols in the Gods and Titans. Next, we have Dionysus. Keyword is ecstasy, which certainly makes sense, I think, with Dionysus, which is a Greek god. Definitely has that feeling of giving into the pleasures, right, that you think of with Dionysus. They say, however, that it's one of the most misunderstood deities. Many believe being a follower of Dionysus means nonstop partying, but honoring Dionysus goes far deeper than that. That he was actually a liberator and a strong proponent for women, not just liking to sleep with women. So symbols, grapes, a theater scroll, androgynous looking man, and honey. I wouldn't say that you get that. You get more, to me, you get more of that sense of party as a party time. And I don't think he looks particularly androgynous either. But in terms of how I think people think of Dionysus, I do think this probably portrays that. This was on the cover of the box. So this is Eros, which I actually really like this image. I think that it says here, Eros is not the chubby, cute cherub of later Christian times, but a fully fledged, virile, and powerful god of love. His true form is that of a stunningly desirable man. I think they pretty well nailed it. He is responsible for the lust and ardor facets of love, as well as the responsibilities like trust that come hand in hand with it. Of course, they do reference the story of Psyche and Eros. I definitely would say that if you're interested in the story of Psyche and Eros, to go and read the book Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis. I love that book. Oh. Anyways. Symbols that he's associated with his bow and arrow and wings. Yeah, I mean, this is no cherub, right? I quite like that because, you know, I don't particularly like fat cherub babies. I think this is an awesome portrayal of powerful love and lust. Next, we have Ganesha. Let me make sure I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm trying to see how Ganesha is how they're saying. I always say Ganesh, but they're saying Ganesha. I mean, I'm guessing there are different ways to say it, but that's what they're saying. And they have it for obstacles. I actually quite like him as well, because sometimes you see Ganesh as looking very more like sweetie, kind of cutesy comic-y book, not in this way, where this looks like a battle Ganesh, right? This to me is, which is the whole deck is very powerful. But I think that this, if there could be a realistic looking elephant god, I feel like this comes close to that to me. It says the god Ganesha was one of the most beloved of all Hindu gods. Everywhere you turn in modern India, you see the joyful elephant-headed deity balancing on one leg, often riding a mouse, pushing your worries away, your worries and negativity. Ganesha is an active god, although many immediately think of him as laid back, as he's often pictured seated and with a sweet on like a sweet treat on his round belly. But in the old stories, he was a brave warrior fighting demons or dancing wildly, pushing away any obstacles. He carries an axe which swings to destroy pride, inertia, and vanity. So yeah, that's very, I really like that actually. Of course, I don't, the same qualifications for the goddess video stand for this. I don't actually look, for me personally, I don't work with gods and goddesses as like separate entities. I'm fine to say I don't know the answer to that question. And I work with them more as many faces of the same divine. So I don't have a strong need for things to be depicted in a specific way. Whereas somebody that works directly with one of these gods or the goddesses, they may have a very strong idea of what those gods or goddesses should look like, and it could be very much a game changer for them. For me, it's just more interesting to see how they're portrayed, because it's just many faces of the same. So I always like to qualify where I'm coming. Next we have Garuda. It looks like Garuda to me, but it's, well, Garuda. Again, I may be saying these wrong. I'm just using the guidebooks reference. The god of travel, which she looks like forward ahead, like full steam ahead. And yeah, Wiley Kiley, I think that you can't expect any deck guidebook to tell you everything that you need to know about a particular god or goddess. So I think that its job should be to point you in the right direction. You should know what the pantheon is, where it's coming from, so that you can then go and do the work. Because if you really want to get into the energy of the different gods and goddesses, you're going to have to put some research into it. And I think that's okay. I don't think we should expect a small guidebook like this to tell us everything. So yeah, I agree with you. This is another of the Hindu gods. From a great golden egg, bird-bodied god Garuda was born. So I'm trying to think. He looks more like he's riding on a bird. I mean, they really do a good job, at least, of giving you some of the stories of the myths. Apparently, sometimes they can be portrayed as we're having the head of a bird, where this one is actually riding on the back of a bird. But I do like the image. I think it's quite powerful, and he does at least look like he's pointing forward. It's time to move forward, travel forward. Apparently, he kidnapped his mother after she lost a bet to her sister. Yeah, lots of goings on in the gods and goddesses worlds, right? They were always up to something. Why is he blue? Nikki, I am not a Hindu, so I can't, and I've not, it's not a religion I've studied very much, so I couldn't tell you why they often use blue. I will say that this book says that sometimes he's actually, oops, I'm on the wrong page. I thought I saw something about yellow. Yeah, he's often seen as a yellow-bodied man with the head of a bird. So that's one of the things that are weird, right? Because it's like yellow-bodied man with the head of a bird, but then here's the image, which is a blue-bodied man riding on a bird. So it's like they get the information more correct in the guidebook, but then you don't see that reflected always in the cards. And that is definitely a thing that you see also in the Goddesses deck. So I feel like in some ways the guidebook was one of my favorite of all the guidebooks, but I didn't always see that information reflected in the cards themselves. Here we have the Green Man energy. I'm reading this really good book right now about, let me see it. Oh, I can't because it's over there. But it talks about the different mythologies in the British Isles and the folk tales and the way that they are now still filtered into our modern mindset. Stephen's shocked that I'm not Hindu. Well, there are religions that I am not of, but I've done a lot more study on, and I simply don't feel like I have a good base in Hindu to answer as to why a lot of times you do see blue. So thank you, Stephen, but I had a reason. Anyways, she was talking in this, they were talking about the Green Man and how a lot of the connotations of the Green Man that we see now in a modern sense, really an amalgamation. A lot of the leafy faced people that we see in a lot of the archways and carvings aren't all the same thing. They could be different things that have now been melded together in this concept of the Green Man. And I love the way that this author writes about how that doesn't lessen the impact of how we see the energy of the Green Man, because it is now taken on a life of its own, which is really, really cool. So we see him as the Lord of the woods and the forest and all of the growing things, right? He is this idea of abundance and growth, associated with the color green, faced with leaves and vegetation. So I do think this has a Green Man feel to it. Next, we have Hades. Of course, he is the god of death. It says in the little like quote thingy, death is not always a negative thing. Everything has a season. Leave behind what you no longer need. So I think we pretty much all know the story of, yes, definitely the Green Man is something more along my side of things. He's known for a true-pronged pitchfork, narcissus flower, a scepter, precious metals. I mean, you have the three-headed dog who does Cerberus that is often portrayed with Hades. So we see that there. Like, I do get the sense that these were actually created for this deck. Like, these are portraying the gods in the way that the artist sees it, which is good. It doesn't seem like it's just artwork that has been pulled and tried to put in. But I think this looks really strong, powerful rendition of Hades. Next we have Helios. This is for cycles. He's the Greek titan of the sun, which you do see the Cyrus there. The Cyrus, I don't know what I'm trying to read and point, and plus I'm hearing the echo in my ear because of the headphone. We see the sun there is what I'm trying to say. And he is known for radiant glows, golden bows, chariots with solar horses. He's obviously riding on a very powerful looking Pegasus, which I think is pretty cool looking. Like, again, sometimes we associate Pegasus and unicorns as this very sort of rainbow bright kind of way, where this looks like, okay, if there was a real Pegasus, this is what it would look like. So I quite like that. He's definitely looks like a younger guy there. I really like this version of Hermes. I think He's got that slenderness, even though he's still buff. I mean, they're all buff, but he definitely has a slenderness that would lead itself to this sort of swift communications, kind of running around, carrying messages. I just feel like I really like him. I think he looks fantastic. Winged helmet, the Codicus, which you don't really see here, I don't think. Winged feet, sheep and shepherds and milk, those you don't see. But I think he looks like the god of communication and speed and swiftness. Works for me. I like the tattoos too. Just, you know, random. Then we have Hypnos, which is the god of sleep from the Greek pantheon. He was born from Nyx, which I think, no, we didn't have Nyx in the goddesses and sirens. That was in a different deck. Artists often picture him hand in hand with his twin brother Thanatos, which is death. Often the brothers shadow each other in their work, this idea of sleep and death, death being, of course, the long sleep, which is awesome. He is known symbolically for having feathers on heads and shoulders, which we do see. Poppies, inverted torches, and branches dripping with water. I mean, he's on the rooftop and it's dark in the sky. He's got the feathers there. Again, I feel like the Gods and Titans does a better job at the symbols than the Goddesses and Sirens. So there you go. Here we have the Jade Emperor next, or also known as the Heavenly Grandfather. He is one of the most beloved and most courted of the Chinese Taoist gods because of his benevolent protection and supreme organizing ability. His symbols are golden palaces, which he looks like he's in, robes with dragons. I don't see any dragons, but he certainly has well-embroidered robes on it. He looks very organized and emperor-like. Yeah, Tammy Pie, I think all of the gods and goddesses are not usually gods or goddesses of one thing. So you certainly get more of a focus on one thing. But I think he looks pretty cool. Again, you get more of a color palette with the Gods and Titans as well. I love this picture. I think he's awesome. So let me make sure I pronounce this correctly. Well, as correctly as I can. Giza, it looks like. No, you can't see that. It's too... I messed up the focus. I won't do that again. It looks like Giza. Giza. If I'm mispronouncing it, I apologize. This is a Japanese, a Buddhist god, or more accurately, a bodhisattva. So I am glad that they put that in there. There is a difference between a god or a bodhisattva. So I'm happy to see that they at least pointed to that. He's known for having a staff with 6 rings, which we see here. Children, crossroads, and it says a Dharma jewel. The Giza is also the embodiment of support to those who suffer. So I like him. He looks like he's in a graveyard. So he's coming to alleviate the suffering of others. I like his face. I like this Loki. I know. I need to not stick the book in front of there. I'm not going to do that again. Loki, they have as the god of play. And I quite like him. I just feel like with his finger to his lip, he definitely looks like he's up to himself or up to something. He's definitely a trickster god. Somebody asked if there are faces on the stones. No, it doesn't look like there are faces on the stones. Just some random carvings. I can't really tell what they are. Yeah, he definitely looks cheeky. He looks like he's up to mischief. To me, it works. I think he works. Horses, a bound man, and snake. I don't see any of those symbols there, but I do feel as if he makes me think of Loki anyways. I like this Lou. Now, let's see how they say to pronounce his name correctly, because, yeah, I learned it as Lou, but you never know. So this is a Celtic god. He was in the Sun card of my very first tarot deck, and you can thank him for the reason why I do not like babies and Sun cards, because I learned to read the Sun card with Lou on it. Very strong, powerful man on a horse. And so the first time I saw the Rider-Waite-Smith or any of the even historical decks with babies on them, I'm like, why is there a baby on the Sun card when it's supposed to be Lou? He symbols are hunting hounds, slingshots, magic spears. He does have a big spear there. Tools and a harp. So he's really this idea of a person of skill and power. I'm trying to see what else they're saying, if they're bringing out anything. Being a person of skill is something to celebrate. No matter if you are good with your hands or with your mind, being skillful in the area you choose is good for your confidence and self-respect, which really goes with the idea of the Sun for me, which is that idea of happiness that comes from confidence in mastering the rest of the major arcana. So anyways, I'm happy that Lou is in here, and you can see why I don't like babies in the Sun card. I love this picture. Now, you all know I am a fan of the movie Moana, despite all of the issues there are with Disney movies. I enjoy Moana. And so I was happy that there is Maui here, and I just think he's awesome looking. I love, of course, the tattoos. I love his hair. I will say he probably looks to me a little bit more, I don't know, ethnically if he looks exactly how he should or shouldn't, but I think the image is pretty awesome. And he goes across. He's not just Polynesia, New Zealand, Hawaii. So all across Polynesia, there are stories of Maui's exploits. And I just think he looks pretty awesome. He's known for the carved fishhook, canoes, a mud hen, kites, and fire. We do have the carved fishhook around his neck. So we have that there. Yeah, very warrior. All of these decks look warrior-like, even the goddesses ones. Here we have Mithras. This is for sacrifice. He's like going to hold the line. I do like this because you can see all the spears in the background. I need to not put my hands in there and messing it up. But he looks like he is just standing there, and he is going to hold the line, even if it's a sacrifice for himself, which I do think is pretty cool. Symbols, bull's horn, stars, sun, moon on a shield. I don't see the sun and the moon on the shield. There is a cow on the shield. The Ouroboros and a handshake. So you're just really seeing a warrior here, but he definitely looks like he's going to hold the line, and no matter what the cost to himself. So next we have Nuada, which I really like this. Again, I know some of these are just like sort of atypical, again, graphic novelization of these people, but are gods, but I think he is awesome. So this is the king of Erin, one of the Chua the Danann, which was one of the mythical races of Ireland. And so I quite like him. Silver hand, he do not show a silver hand, although he does have a metallic hand. So I do think, again, that there was at least an attempt to know who they are painting, which you don't necessarily get from the goddesses and sirens. So the goddesses and sirens, the palette is really kind of monotone in many ways. You don't get all the color you're getting here, and you don't get the symbols there. So I kind of wonder if they did the one first and then they improved it in the second deck. I'll be interested to know which of the decks came out first, because I actually think that this one was an improvement on the other. I think that Odin was added in for the American version, but I don't quote me on that because I don't know. I don't know for sure which ones were added into the Gods and Titans. I'm not a huge fan of all of the helmets with the winged things that are always connected with Vikings and Norse pantheons. It gets a little bit much. So this is not my favorite depiction of Odin. I do think that people can look at them now and they will see, okay, yeah, that's obviously supposed to be something Norse, even though I think we're probably all over, I think, what is historically inaccurate. I don't really see any of the, you don't see any runes on here. He has a spear that never misses. It could be, I guess, in his hand. You do see the sun behind him. His ravens aren't there. His wolves aren't there. This one to me is probably one of my least favorites. I agree. He's handsome, and he definitely looks like what our idea of a Viking is, but he doesn't scream Odin to me. I do like at least that he has a white beard. I'm pretty picky about Odin. Here we have Osiris, which is obviously being shown here with Isis, which I think in the other one you also had Isis with Osiris, because they obviously were connected. Their story of birth and rebirth is something that is connected. And so on both of the decks, they definitely have them connected. Now, why he is blue, I'm not sure. I don't think I've, yeah, see, this is the thing. Crook and flail, 8 of crown, green body with a mummified lower torso. Now we can't see his bottom. This apparently, you know, Jimmy Manton maybe just likes blue for gods. But it's just kind of funny because it says green body, but then we have an image with a blue body. So there was definitely maybe not communication between the person who wrote the guidebook, Stacey DeMarco, and Jimmy Manton. But it does look like Osiris and Isis. Here's Poseidon. I was disappointed about this one just because I don't think of Poseidon as being young. Now, obviously, as I said in some of the goddess ones, you know, they weren't born old people. So, you know, obviously Poseidon was a young a young god at some point, but when I think of Poseidon, I definitely think of more of an older white hair, white flowing hair kind of feel to it. Trident, dolphins, and horses. We definitely have the trident. We definitely have the waves crashing. And again, some people might like to have, you know, a young version of Poseidon, but I prefer white hair, white beard, you know, yeah, that sort of wisdom and power of the sea. So this one was not my favorite at all. Next we have Prometheus, and we have this as altruism. This is interesting with the hands meeting hands. I do like his face. There is not so much a warrior energy going on here. Oh no, Molly. I tried to wait, but I tried to push it off so that you could come. Some people got their notifications and some people didn't. So Prometheus is one of my favorites of the stories, and it's definitely, the guidebook does reflect the fact that it is quite complex. And so of course in the myths, Prometheus is asked to create the humans, and he creates them out of the clay. So we can see that he's actually creating a human being here, which I think he also then helps us, and then he gets in trouble for helping us, and all the things that go on to happen. Fire, fennel, Olympic torch, eagles, and clay. You definitely are doing this making of humankind, which I think works. So I quite like this one. Oh, that's too bad. I guess a lot of people, sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. I really like Ra. I think this looks really powerful. I think that sometimes when they do the animal heads onto the bodies for Egyptians, it's not my favorite. But I actually like it in this deck. I liked, which was the other one we had? Oops, oh, I'm dropping things, sorry. See if I can find it. Anubis. Like, I feel like it looks like it goes on his head body. And even this, I think, looks really powerful. So I like this Ra. I just bent my book. Oh, well. Okay. Ankh, a scepter and storms. I mean, you definitely have the Ankh, and he definitely has a scepter. And I think that you would look at this and think of Ra. So I think it looks pretty awesome. Set also. See, I think that Jimmy Manton did a good job with the animal heads. I really feel like I wish they would redo the goddesses and sirens, but you can't have everything. Okay. So we have Set for chaos. I think this looks like chaos. He is the god of desert, darkness, chaos, and storms. He is the dark brother of Osiris, whom he killed and dismembered in jealousy. He does look like he might dismember somebody. Ankh, another scepter, and then storms instead. All of these Egyptian ones do have the scepters. They seem to have an Ankh. I don't see one in this one, but I think he works for chaos. I like it. I'm a fan. Somebody said an anteater. I don't think he's supposed to. Yeah, actually, including features of an aardvark, a jackal, or sometimes even a greyhound. It works. Here we have Shiva, which again, I think looks very powerful. Well, this is a powerful chaos god. So this aardvark has teeth. Stephen. Lord Shiva comes dancing into our earthly plane in many forms and has many faces, but it is his role as Shiva the Destroyer that we're examining here. So apparently he is the third aspect of the Hindu Trinity, with Brahma as the creator and Vishnu as a preserver. Okay, I did know that. There is nothing extra with Shiva. All that is not real is destroyed, yet there is the essential masculine energy left for his connection with Parvati, his wife. Shiva is often pictured stepping on the demon of ignorance as he dissembles what is not needed. Symbols, Shiva Lingam stone. I don't see one of those there. Crescent moons. We just see a moon there. And fire. So I'm not really seeing the, I'm sorry for Isabel. She's being a pain. Isabel Louise. Hey, come here. Somebody's daring to move over there. But I do think he looks really powerful. So I like Shiva, but I really enjoyed typical Hindu depiction. You're definitely not going to get typical depictions of any of these in this deck, I don't think. Here's Thor. Okay, everybody pause for a moment and swoon. Shall I just leave this? Shall I leave this sitting here for a moment? I mean, again, take those things off. I don't like all of the winged things with Norse gods. But, you know, come on, it's Thor. It's Thor. He's action. He's a warrior. He's fighting. He's ripped. What else are you supposed to say? He has his hammer. He's got his belt. Not much else but a belt. He's got not iron gloves. No lightning and thunder going on. But look, he's ready for action. Here we have Toth. Well, let's see how they pronounce it. Some people say Thoth, some people say Toth. Let's see what they say. They say Toth. Oh, I'm not going to stick it in there. It messed it up last time. They do say Toth, which is what I say, but I don't know that there's a, I'm not Egyptian, so I can't say what is exactly right. Again, I really like all the Egyptian gods in here. I think that Jimmy Manton did a great job with the animal heads and bodies. I think they actually work well. He's the god of wisdom and knowledge. And we have a book in his hand, which I like. So I think that his Egyptian gods just really did well. Nikki does not mind the romance in the Thor card. She's not minding it. Next we have Typhon, or I think it's Typhon, so I would say it. For rage. Now he's got a very powerful, almost alien-esque kind of predator feel to it. Stephen is just sure I'm Egyptian. Hey, I could be. Snake tail, red, fire-filled eyes, serpents and storms. I mean, I do feel like you get all of that sense there. Typhon is perhaps one of the most terrifying titans of ancient Greece. Gargantuan in size, Typhon possesses a huge scaly body like a dragon and the head and torso of a man. His eyes shoot fire, but the most frightening thing about him is his seemingly unquenchable rage. So I think that this did actually quite well. It seems good to me. I like this one too. Well, this is a Norse god of marksmanship. Obviously, we can see the bow and arrow here. You could think of this in terms of focus. Oh, this is focus. I thought it was sharpshooting. You can see the clearness, clarity, focus, these kinds of energies. I really like it. I'm a fan. Here we have Vishnu. About balance. The Hindus believe that both good and evil exist in the world. This is a natural way of being. When harmony is disturbed, Vishnu appears to maintain balance. Symbols are conch, wheel, lotus, bow, and arrow. I don't really see any of those. This is more of a dancing. Vishnu is almost always depicted with blue skin, and sometimes he rides on his magnificent bird-like mount, Garuda. See, that's what's interesting, is that would have worked even for that other one that we saw for, let me find it. That would, to me, speak more of Vishnu. Of course, I'm never going to find this one, because he's actually riding. Well, this is Garuda. Oh, wait a minute. See, because I don't know the myth, Garuda is this. He's Garuda. That's Vishnu riding on his back. Okay, well, we learned something, because they were describing it and I was like, that's not working. But this is Garuda with Vishnu on his back, and this obviously is Vishnu. All right, see, I don't know everything about him. Again, I would say Hindu mythology is probably my least known. So now we know the ignorance of me. And they said he was yellow cone. Yeah, we solved the problem. Why? Because we couldn't figure out why this didn't really match up. But obviously if I'd read the whole thing, maybe I would have gotten it. But again, that's why we learn. That's how we learn. Because that's I would say, of all of these gods and goddesses, I know the names of them and I recognize most of the Hindu gods and goddesses, but it's a very complex system, pantheon system, I think. It's just this amazing, rich, so many layers and so many faces of the gods and goddesses and such that I think it would take some intense study to get really comfortable. So, okay, problem solved. I like both of those now. Here we have Vulcan. We're almost done. The artist is Jimmy Manton. So there was one god the ancient Romans valued above all others for his inventiveness and ingenuity, which is Vulcan. In his Greek embodiment, Hephaestus, he is both respected and courted by the other gods for his skills. Anvil, hammer, and tongs, and fire. He's blacksmithing. He is slamming his anvil down, or the anvil. He is hammering a sword on an anvil. And so you definitely have that blacksmith feel there. I quite like that. Okay. And lastly, we have Zeus. Again, I would prefer Zeus to be more white-haired. He looks like the guy who plays Aquaman. Was it Jason Momoa? What's his name? That he also played. I'm probably saying wrong who he is. Anyways, he looks like an actor that I would like him to be a little bit older, more white-haired. But I mean, he's not super young-looking either, so it's kind of in between. Drogo, yes. Khal Drogo. Jason Momoa, yes. Yeah, that's what he looks to me. I mean, I do think this looks Zeus-like. I just would like him to be a little bit older, but that's just my own personal opinion. Lightning bolts, horn of plenty, eagles, and royal scepters. He doesn't have a royal scepter, but I don't think he needs one. And you do have the eagle there. So I think it works in leadership. So there we have it. I'm going to switch up. Let's see. I lost my mouse because I was putting everything out of the way. Because we'll get a better view here. How do I do this? Actually, before I do that, oh, that's interesting. Stephen says, an excellent intro to important elements of Hindu myth would be Peter Brook's 6-hour film adaptation of the, I'm going to slaughter this, Mahabharata, something of that nature. So thank you, Stephen. I'm going to just quickly do a draw from each, and then I'll go upright to talk a little bit more about it in general. So you can see when I first got these a couple years ago, I actually liked the gods and titans better than the gods, goddesses, and sirens. And I'll show you why once we come face up. But let me pull one from the goddesses and one from the gods, because I think that is a great way to use these decks, because you actually have both. So you can get sort of that feminine energy, the kick butt feminine energy, and then you can get the masculine energy. Okay. Ooh, we have Hera. I really like this version of Hera, actually. I think she looks extremely powerful. She looks very committed to her course. It's like pick your course that you're going to go on and be completely committed to it. I quite love that depiction of her. Let me pull the masculine. The guidebooks are almost identical. Yeah, Nikki, the guidebooks are set up the same, seem to give the same information. So yeah, I think the guidebooks are quite similar. And I'm a fan of the guidebooks. In the goddesses and sirens, I just don't think you see the same depiction of the symbols that they talk about in the deck itself. So we have Hera and Anubis, a commitment to protection. So this is very much a standing your ground, understanding where are your lines, where are your boundaries, staying committed to those, and then, you know, kind of moving into that protective stance. You could see that as. So both of these, like, you see a very masculine, because of course men and women hold within them masculine, feminine, and she's got that very strong masculine, I'm holding the line here, not this sort of soft receptivity. And then with the idea of protection with Anubis, and we talked about this being more of that nurturing and guiding in the souls. So you definitely have almost the swap, which I really like to see, a bit more of the yin energy, receptive energy here, and more of the yang, masculine active energy here. And I like that you can see that, because it's not that everything female is yin and everything male is yang. That's just not the way that it works. We all carry those energies in. And so the gods and goddesses should be portraying both of those things. So I quite like that. So that's one way that you could use the decks, is to pull one from each of them. Now, I've also seen, I'm not going to do it because then I'd have to separate them all, but I've also seen people mix them together, and then you have one deck of gods and goddesses that you could also do, and then just draw from them as one good balanced deck. So let me go up here. How do I do this? I'm not sure. Present. There we go. I think I'm going to eject eject. That way it's not running and getting hotter and hotter. And now I know I'm very bright. Gonna be a bright. Yeah, it's definitely gold and silver in the backings. Let me pull this down real quick. Here we go. Yeah, it's getting hot, so definitely a good to stop it, to stop it from moving. So yes, to answer Nikki's question, you get the same setup in there, where you have the titles, the sort of statement, the information about the mythology, the shadow side, the symbols, and then the invocation. That is the same that you have in both the decks. Both the decks do have the pronunciation guides in the back as well. So those are set up the same. I love Artemis here. I think she is really kick butt. In my mind, yellow sun is male. True. Yeah. Now, although there are cultures in which that is the opposite, which is interesting. But I think you're getting more of the sense of steel, maybe more than silver. You're getting that idea of steel and swords and shields, of course, which are just as prevalent in this deck as they are in this deck. So it works. I think it works. Same card stock, again, same size. Everything's the same in terms of that, other than the fact, as I said before, on the Gods and Titans, you do get the scroll work, and you do get this rectangle over the title that you don't get in the Goddesses and Sirens deck. So yeah, there are definitely, we don't see them as much, but you know, I think that in the modern pagan new age, I don't know what you'd call, whatever, the more modern pagan, I think, is a good catch-all. Pagan just means outside of the Abrahamic religions, which can hold just about anything, right? So I think that we definitely have that connotation of the feminine moon, and I do as well. In my own personal practice, I definitely work with the moon as much more of a feminine energy, but remember, it's a reflection of the sun, which is masculine. So there's always both, right? Everything is always there. So So yeah, I'm, again, as I said, when I first got these a couple years ago, I was just kind of like, oh yeah, these are just a bit much, right? They're just a little bit, not even a little bit. They're a lot dramatic. And so you definitely have that dramatic aspect of them, and it didn't really sync with me. But again, after doing right, it's always both, Wiley. Exactly. But after doing that whole goddesses, by the time I was done with that, you get a little bit much with the softer feminine versions of the goddesses, and so it was actually quite refreshing to hit on these like kick butt goddess energy. So I definitely have a better appreciation for them than I had before. I do think that I do love that one. I love her. I mean, they definitely are calling for this sense of power, and there is definitely a forward pushing, powerful nature to all of the representations. There's no question. I love Rhiannon here. Okay, so Deborah says Odin and Odin, not both of them. I don't know who the first. Deborah, Apollo. Says Apollo maybe and Odin were the two that were added in. I'm not sure. If you choose a god or titan, like Molly, I'm missing something. How are the guides as far as the info, generic and or accurate? I think that becomes really difficult to judge, just because of the fact that gods and goddesses, if you study mythology, you'll find there are multiple stories surrounding each one of the different gods, goddesses, titans, and they very often contradict each other. So you will get contradicting stories about the same gods and goddesses, and because some of that is just because that's how stories work, and some of that is also because gods and goddesses and titans and heroes aren't static. They do cross time periods, they cross cultures, and so they do get they do get kind of mixed over time. They get crossed in with other gods and goddesses, and so the stories themselves can be conflicting. I feel like it gives you enough, at least compared to the other guidebooks that were in the goddesses. I feel like it gives you enough to touch you into at least the pantheon that they're from, the culture that they would be from, and maybe the major aspects that they're known for that seem to me, I haven't read through every single one of these, but they seem to at least tap into what I know to be at least a basic idea of them. If you want to really sink into a god or a goddess, it's not going to happen in 147 page, this size book. Like, it's just not going to happen. But I do feel like at least gets you into the lane so that you can know where to look and get at least a base idea of how the gods and goddesses are at least known now, nowadays. So, yeah, I guess I have, a lower expectation than people might have for a guidebook. I just don't expect that. Yeah, Pele is included. There's another one too in the Goddesses and Sirens. I know Pele was one. It wasn't that it was left out in the Australian version. They were added in the it came out in Australia. Blue Angel is an Australian company. And then when it was released in the US, there were extra cards that were added in. So, Yeah, I mean, I guess I just have a low expectation about what a guidebook this size is going to do, and as long as it at least gives us a general sense of what that god or goddess is known for, gives us an accurate culture so that we can focus in, kind of hone in our studies if we pull that card. I don't think these are kinds of decks that you necessarily should be pulling 9 cards of. So if you're pulling one, you know, if you're pulling one god or even a god and a goddess and sitting maybe with that energy for a month and doing research on that energy, that's going to allow you to really sink into those particular gods and goddesses. I think would be a great way to sink into the mythologies of the different ones. It's a good opportunity. So I have to say, again, I've gotten a softer spot in my heart for the goddesses now than I did before. I still probably would say I like the gods deck the most of the two. I think it does a better job of the symbols being placed in there, which we often saw missing in the goddess ones. But I do like the kick buttery of the feminine ones, or the goddess ones as well. So I think that we don't have a lot of masculine decks. So at least this does give us a gods and heroes deck that we really don't have a lot of. And then again, I have definitely seen where people mix the two together. And I would personally say a great thing to do would be to either pick one from each so you have both, or mix them up and having one nice big, how many cards are in each deck? 38 cards, so having a close to 80 card deck of gods and goddesses and heroes and sirens, I think would be pretty awesome to have. So I've seen people do both, and I think you could make a case for doing both. And obviously you can do one, the other, and both, just depending on what your mood is, because it's really easy to pull them out again once they're mixed, because it's quite obvious the backing, so you can just very quickly pull out the backings or pull them out and disassociate, pull them back out. I'm putting the wrong deck into the wrong one. So hopefully that at least helps Miss Nikki deciding if she wants the God and Titans deck, and Miss Molly deciding if she wants either one of the decks. That was kind of the purpose of doing this live, just so we could get it done, and that way they could make a decision on the decks. So hello, Anna. Yes, we just rolled into a live walkthrough of the Gods and Titans. Actually, I don't believe you get additional cards. I think this is getting a little bit confused. So Bewitching Leviosa, the US version, from my understanding, and please obviously look this up yourself because I am not an expert on this, but from what I understand, the Australian version is missing 2 of the ones that are in the US versions. So if you have the US version, you actually have all of the extra cards. So getting the Australian version, from my understanding, isn't going to give you any other cards. If you have the Australian version, some people have then gone and gotten the US version because that way they get the extra cards. So from my understanding, it is the US version that has the extra cards and the less ugly backs. I still don't think these are fabulous backs, but they are far better backs, in my opinion, than the Australian version. So my recommendation is to get the US version if you're getting the decks, because you get the 2 extra cards and you get the backs that don't have words on them. So just to kind of clarify that, I saw, you know, I'm not picking on just Levioso here. I saw a couple people that were, I think, misunderstanding where the extra cards came into play. Oh, you have the Australian. Okay, yeah. then that makes sense. Sorry, but it allows us to clarify that for other people watching as we came back. Yeah, Anna, this is the Gods and Titans, but then there's also, whoops, I put the wrong cover. And my other cover dropped. There's a Gods and Titans and a Goddesses and Sirens. So there are two of Stacey DeMarco and Jimmy Manton's work. And then I don't know if it's Stacey DeMarco, I don't think so, but there's also a Norse oracle or Viking oracle that I think that Jimmy Manton does the artwork for. I need to pick it up just to do a review for it, but I wasn't real thrilled with what I had seen. The depictions of the runes were weird because sometimes they were just runes, and then sometimes they were like people or things that were in them. So it didn't seem very cohesive at all. But I might get it just to do a review because there's not very many Norse or Viking style oracles either. And I think that's a Jimmy Manton deck also. I also love Jimmy Manton's Secret of the Animals. Is one of my favorite oracle decks that Jimmy Manton does. And I love his Halloween oracle, which is don't get too excited, Siren Phoenix, because a lot of people who were excited about the Viking oracle ended up being really disappointed in the deck. But I haven't seen it for myself, so I'll probably order it and do a walkthrough just so we can figure it out from my perspective. Using runes themselves to me is a casting system, so I don't really work with rune decks in terms of that. But if it was part of a oracle deck, I don't mind it, but they're not all portrayed in the same way. So I think that they need to be a little bit more cohesive, where if you're going to have all symbols, then just have all symbols, but it's like a mix of things. But I'll order it and take a look at it. So I would say, because again, I'm only hearing what other people are disappointed in. I might get it and not be disappointed in it. Who knows? What are you going to do? You know, everybody's got different reactions to things than other people do. So, but in general, I'm a fan of Jimmy Manton's artwork. His problem with people for me is sometimes there are weird proportions, which you really don't see in the Gods and Titans deck. You see it a couple times in the Goddesses and Sirens. I'll see if I can find the worst. Like this one's a little bit, but it's not too bad, where her head's just a little bit small for the rest of her body. But then he really nails it sometimes really well. So it wouldn't stop me from getting his work. This one is my least favorite of the whole deck. Like I would really like to just not put this in here because it's got an arm that's way over here. So it just got this weird proportions and weird posture. This is my least favorite of the deck, but I am a fan. I have a lot of his oracle decks because I am a fan of his artwork. I love Secret Language of the Animals, and I love the Halloween oracle. Anyways, yeah, no, there are some great rune decks that are just runes. I guess my point with runes is that I feel like they're meant to be cast and interact with each other. And so I found that same thing. Even though I learned to read OMs off of a card deck, I don't ever read OMs that way anymore because I just think they're meant to land on top of each other and be cast. It's just, yeah, definitely Marvel-esque, Jen. Definitely have that sense of Marvel proportions, which is what these are like. These are very much that graphic novel style. So the one that you dislike the most in the Goddesses, I get her all the time. This is what happens. But then you end up making friends with them. So it happens. It happens. All right, I am going to get off here because I want to keep this a little bit concise to just being about the decks so that somebody, if they decide to watch it back later, can at least have a, have it kind of kept somewhat solidly together towards the deck itself. So I'm going to, and plus I've been on since earlier with live chat, so I'm going to wrap this up and go be a couch potato. for a little while. So you guys all have a fantastic rest of your weekend. If you celebrate Easter, have a happy Easter tomorrow. A lot of times people are doing things with family. And so if that's the case, enjoy yourselves, and I will see you guys all later.